Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. I thought I would introduce a new sub-channel here in my Cryptids and Monsters series, and I'm doing this because I wanted to test it out and just see how it goes. If it's popular enough, sure, I'll just continue the trend. If not, then maybe I'll try it later on again. But what I'll call this one is pretty much the Cryptid/Monster of the week. And basically the premise is this: once a week I'll go to one of my favorite websites, which is cryptids.wikia.com, and there I'll hit the random page link, which just pretty much just brings up a random cryptid or a random monster out of the blue. No particular search involved, no particular theme. It just searches for a random page, and whatever pops up is what I'll talk about for that week. So I'll just do this once a week, and I'll pick one basic, the first thing that I see after hitting the random page link will be the one that I'm talking about. That's the theory behind that. That's the, I guess, the honor system behind it. So it could be something involving Bigfoot that I talk about. It could be something involving something else completely different. It may even be something that I might even talked about before. I'll just reiterate it here again, but that's pretty rare considering how many of the cryptid links are there on this page. But in any case, that's the idea. And in this particular item, the first page that came up after I clicked on random page was an entity known as the Manhattan Monster. A pretty recent discovery too, if anyone hasn't heard it. It actually was something that happened probably about 2 or so years ago. And it's called the Manhattan Monster because, as you'll see a picture of it here, this, whatever this thing was, this entity, this being, although most likely it's something far more realistic, which I'll explain here in a minute, it was found there in Manhattan right under the Brooklyn Bridge. So this all happened again very recently. In fact, according to the Huffington Post, which the person that found this thing gave the interview to, it was dated as middle of July 2012, to give you an idea. And there was an amateur photographer by the name of Denise Ginley, and she said there she was, essentially just traveling down the Brooklyn Bridge, just walking underneath it, when she happened to see this thing. In fact, this is what she told the Huffington Post, which is a pretty big online article base, so it's legit. In other words, she said, we were walking, this was on a stroll on Sunday. She said, we were walking on the Esplanade along the East River beneath the FDR, and we found the dead creature lying on a strip of sand beside the East River on the Manhattan side, directly underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. It looked like the tide probably washed the carcass up there along with some driftwood. And no sooner did she start taking pictures than it started to get like a following of some sort, and the reason for it is because, as one of the earlier cryptids that I talked about, the Montauk Monster, it certainly looks very, very similar to it. Both have a very similar appearance. Both look, small. They have 4 legs of sorts. They look like the same body shape, completely skinless. And so that's why the theory suddenly started coming about once the picture that she was taking, or the pictures that Denise was taking, once she posted them online and they started getting a following of their own sorts, it just tagged on to what people were thinking about the Montauk Monster and realizing, hey, there could be something else here, this time in New York, related to the Montauk Monster. Now, the theories, of course, started coming out all of a sudden as to what this thing is, and some of these theories are kooky and zany, funny, and so forth. To give you an idea, the most common theory regarding this creature is that it was actually a giant rodent of some sort that just died, and wherever it was, it somehow landed in that river and then washed ashore, which kind of makes sense. I'm pretty much for that as well. I think it was something like a gigantic rat of some sort, an abnormally sized gigantic rat. Of course, if you run into something like this as a rat, and you see this like in the hallway, watch out. But that's one theory. Another theory, which is more bizarre, is that it was actually a cooked pig that a family apparently could not finish or could not fit into whatever contraption they were trying to use to cook the pig, and so because of it they just basically threw it aside in the East River, and that's how it ended up there. I don't think it's that case. Others actually believe that it might be a small dog. And the reason why it looks weird is because when animals die and they end up in water, all the skin washes away, which leaves a very abnormal looking creature, far more different than what you and I would think a dog would normally look like because it doesn't have hair. I also tend to believe that that's what this is, that this was either a small dog or a large rat that somehow died naturally or whatever and just ended up in the river. And again, because of the state of decay that it's in and because of the effects that water does to a corpse, to a decomposing body, it just adds to the gruesome and bizarre look to it, which makes it look something completely otherworldly as opposed to anything that you and I would think of like normal looking, like let's say a rat or a dog. And in fact, that tends to be the most common theory because some people actually investigated this, and one department that's from the government, the Parks Department, they believe that the animal was something involving that quote-unquote cooked pig that I was talking about earlier. That's where that theory came about. But another theory from the same department, Paul Curtis, was telling an online news organization named The Gothamist. He said, the best guess looking at the body conformation and dentation is that it was likely a small dog that drowned and has been floating in the river for quite a while. It is obviously bloated and all the hair has slipped off the carcass. Now, the Montauk Monster that washed up on Long Island, that was determined to be a bloated raccoon carcass. The teeth in this case look more dog-like than raccoon-like to me. It's tough to confirm the species from the photos without the jaw in hand to examine the teeth in detail. So that was his summation. He too believes that it was more on the lines of a small dog, and again he related the Montauk Monster as an example of how eerily similar they look. He just wished that he had more of a jaw that on this Manhattan Monster to try to parallel them, make them look closer together. But he too was right in saying that the Montauk Monsters I had mentioned in that video that I did a while back, which check it out if you have a chance. It's one of my earlier videos, and in it he talks about the fact that it turned out that it was nothing more than a raccoon carcass, which I had mentioned as well. And that's how these two examples, in this case the Montauk Monster and the Manhattan Monster, they look bizarre. They look like things from another world. They look like something that just landed from Mars and unfortunately died and ended up with an invisible sight of people taking pictures. But no, in actuality they're just real world animals that, again, due to the state of composition, natural composition, and then due to the state of the water that they were in, adding to their bizarre look, it just all adds up to something that looks like from out of this world. So the Manhattan Monster, what do you guys think? Pretty recent. I was surprised actually because I did not hear about this particular quote-unquote cryptid up until I clicked on this random page. Of course I heard about the Montauk Monster. That one, you could not escape it for a while once it started getting viral, but the Manhattan Monster not so much. So it looks like after the Montauk Monster came in wind, everyone else at this point, like let's say another appearance like this with the Manhattan Monster, people were like, been there, done that. It looks very similar. Let's move on to the next things, because it didn't catch on as quite the interesting bit of, let's say, viral stuff that the Montauk Monster did. But in any case, if anyone has any other info tied to the Manhattan Monster, post it. Post your comments, please. Share them below. It'd be interesting to see if anyone has any other theories tied to this, especially if it's more along the lines of, let's say, government conspiracy, loose monster, animal experimentation, that kind of stuff. Although, again, at the end of the day, I still think this is just a regular animal, whether it's a large rat or whether it's a small dog that somehow just ended up ashore. So, and yeah, let me know too, what do you guys think as far as the cryptid/monsters of the week. If you like it, I'll just continue it again next week. And again, the whole idea behind it is I'm going to just go to my favorite website, which is again that cryptids.wikia.com, and just click on the random page. And the whole honor theory behind it is that the very first link that comes up, no matter what, that's the one that I'll talk about here. So no bias, no particular favoritism. It's all 100% set to chance. So that's what I think is pretty cool about it, because I could come across something that's very, very fascinating, and I could come across something that is very dull. But again, it's just whatever is there, I'll share it with you. So, alright, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.